Hi everyone, welcome to Tile and Cork. We are Amy and Josh, and we moved from Austin, Texas to Lisbon, Portugal last year with our 2 kids, and we are sharing our experiences moving abroad with you.
Today we're going to talk about new proposed changes to the immigration law in Portugal.
So something that may affect you if you already live here or if you are thinking of moving to Portugal. These things could play a factor in your decision to stay in Portugal or choose Portugal as a place to live. So we're going to talk all about what it is and what that means. And we're also going to talk about, is it affecting us? Are we going to stay in Portugal? What are our plans? So let's get into it.
So the changes we're going to talk about today have been proposed. The consensus is that it will be approved, and there are a lot of bullet points, but largely what we want to talk today is about citizenship and the path to citizenship here in Portugal. For some context, there have been a lot of I think even 4 elections in 4 years here in Portugal, with the changing of governments back and forth, reactionary, and there have been changes to immigration law as well. And some of those changes have also been repealed, also reactionary. So there are basically a lot of changes going on in the government here. And I think something to keep in mind is that these changes may not survive the next year or 5 years. Personally, we were looking at applying for citizenship in 4 years originally, and any changes that come through, I don't really even pay attention to that much because we expect a lot of changes between now and then.
Yeah. So let's talk about what this actually is.
That being said, let's talk about the proposed changes to the immigration law. Okay, there are different aspects to this new proposed legislation, some of it regarding language requirements, as well as what country you're coming here from. But mostly we want to talk about the citizenship part, the path to citizenship, and the length of time.
Because I think that's what's gonna, most people are curious about, and
will affect most people.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're proposing changing the current status of it being a 5-year period before you can apply for citizenship to 10 years.
Yeah.
As well as when that time period starts.
Yeah, so one of the things too is not just the time period, but when that clock starts, because right now it's understood the clock starts, actually I think it's when you apply for the visa, and now they're proposing that it starts for when you're actually granted your residency permit. And for us, that's a year difference, because we applied at the end of May and my residency permit was not granted until a year later. And so that is an additional year. And so, for some people that like me, that's a big difference. And it does play a part into, just processing times of residency permits. Some people get theirs in 2 weeks. For us, it took, I don't know how long, 6-7 months.
Yeah.
So it's kind of luck of the draw on that. So, it's, it's one of those things that is difficult.
And I think a lot of the uproar comes from the fact that there is this additional time that's worked into the process because not of you or your application, but because of the backlog in the bureaucracy and the luck of the draw where you get your appointments.
Yeah, so, our daughter still doesn't have her card, and we've been living here for almost a year now. So So I think a lot of people are just concerned about that because, like Josh mentioned, we moved here and it would still be a few years before we could apply for citizenship. But there are people we know who were, months, maybe a year away from getting that point, and they were, taking their language tests, making sure they had all their paperwork in order. And right now, as if this passes, they're going to have to wait another 6 years, almost another 6 years or 5 years or something. And so I think for a lot of people, it, just people that have worked to integrate here into the community and everything, it's difficult.
So and let's make maybe a bit of a reminder too of the benefits of Portuguese citizenship.
Yeah, because you might say what does it matter? You can still live here as a resident.
Right, and I there are probably 3 main points that I can think of off the top of my head. One is that you can vote.
Yeah.
Okay, you're one vote amongst many, so maybe that's not a big deal.
But it makes you a part of the community,
right.
even more so because you feel like you are able to vote in the national elections and have a voice in that way.
The other one, probably the biggest one, is that it would allow you to become a citizen of the EU, the Schengen zone, right?
The EU, yeah.
EU. And that would allow us, or kids, to move to any other part of the EU without applying for visas, etc.
Yeah.
And for us or the kids to go to college or universities around the EU without,
just
charging additional fees or
like
whatever.
We're not at that point, so we haven't looked too much into it, but we know there's some benefits to that.
And then the third one, you, at least currently, you can have dual citizenship. You can have U.S. citizenship and Portuguese citizenship. If in that case, we actually pay taxes in both countries. We pay taxes in the U.S. and taxes here in Portugal. That's a subject for a different video, but if you wanted to, if you were tired of paying taxes in the U.S., you could rescind your U.S. citizenship.
Yeah, of course, there's a lot of implications with that.
Sure,
but that would be a possibility.
That's a big deal for
people
becoming a citizenship.
Yeah, for people that want to do that. I think there's actually another reason too. So
do tell.
So I think a lot of people do. So when you have residency, you can't travel in and out of the country as much. You're limited to the amount of time you can spend outside of Portugal each year. A lot of people look forward to not being constrained by that time constraint with citizenship, being able to kind of, move in and out of Portugal a little bit more. So if you need to spend 6 months back in the U.S. taking care of a sick family member, it allows you that flexibility. Whereas residency is not going to allow for that flexibility quite as much. So that is definitely a huge benefit of citizenship that I've heard a lot of people, it's really important to them.
So like if you're going to be on Love Island,
yeah,
Survivor,
exactly,
and are going to be out of the country, Amazing Race.
Oh, definitely Amazing Race.
Unless they come to Portugal, and maybe that resets it. I don't know.
So some important considerations of what why people want citizenship.
So they're expected to vote on this proposal soon. And then even after that, there'll be some debate about what that law actually means. But let's talk about how actually this change would affect us personally, and hopefully you can use that as an example for your own situation.
Yeah, how do we feel about it? What does it mean for us?
Having 2 young kids here who are in school, we're not treating them like army brats. We're not going to move them around. Heck, we're not even moving them around from neighborhood to neighborhood or we would like to stay in the same place, keep them in the same schools for a period of time, at least 5 years.
Yeah.
So the citizenship thing doesn't affect us too much.
Yeah, right now. I think, we don't really we didn't have plans to leave Portugal after 5 years. Our plan was not to get citizenship, but then move off to another, EU country or back to the U.S.
We thought about
citizenship,
but I think we thought the thing is we certainly were thinking about moving, but because we hadn't lived here, and it turns out we really love Portugal and we love the Portuguese people. We love the culture. We love the wine. We love
definitely the wine.
We love the landscape and geography and the wine. So we could see ourselves living here for quite a while.
Yeah, and I think the 5-year citizenship was a draw for when we were trying to figure out what country we wanted to move to, and I think it's a draw for a lot of people. And so I think that it's hard to know until you're actually living in a country how you're gonna like living there. And I actually know people that moved to Portugal for a year and it wasn't right for them for whatever reason, and they moved to another country in Europe.
And even some that did that and came back to Portugal. Yeah. Right? We know people who've lived all over and end up wanting to have their final settle place in Portugal.
Yeah, so I think, for people, it can be a draw, but for us, I think it was initially like, oh, that'd be nice if, we can get citizenship after 5 years, even if we didn't leave, but just to have that permanency. And so I think, now that we're here, we don't have any plans to leave. This law, while disappointing, if the proposal becomes a law, I think it would be disappointing because we, like a lot of people who want to live here, would still like to become citizens sooner rather than later to feel integrated and connected to the country and everything. And then also there's the factor of processing time for citizenships. I know it can take years to process a citizenship application. So it's not just after 5 years or 10 years. There might be an additional 2 or 3 years tacked on top of that before your citizenship application is actually processed and citizenship is granted. So you could be looking at, instead of 5 years, which then could turn into 7 years, you could be looking at 12 years or 13 years. So I think it just lengthens that time to getting citizenship.
I mean, the other thing to keep in mind is that, again, citizenship was an incentive for us to move here, but so was NHR, which was a tax benefit they were giving to foreigners that were moving here. It was a big incentive for a lot of people. When it went away before we could actually apply for citizenship, but
we could apply for our visas.
Yeah. But we realized it wasn't the main reason we were.
So we don't have
moving
it.
here. We don't have it, and we don't miss it.
I think so if you are looking at moving to Portugal or another country, I think ultimately just know that things can change. Your reasons for why you chose a place could evaporate. And so if you have only chosen this place because of quick citizenship or quicker than other places, or you have only chosen this place because of some tax benefit, or you've only chosen this place for some other reason, then just know that that might go away. And so I would say choose a place where you really want to live and could see yourself living long term. And I think you just kind of have to go with the flow and understand and just see what happens.
Should we make predictions now and then they can be thrown in our face in a year? But I think at least parts of this legislation will change in the next 2 years, year or two. Probably less than. Yeah,
and I think there are some people obviously that are a lot further along in their residency path than us too, that are probably more frustrated than us. I don't find myself frustrated about it. It's just okay, we'll see what happens. A lot can change. It's all the wine that I'm just I have no reason to leave Portugal anyway because there's fantastic wine. But I think, for people that, we're kind of right there, and then to have kind of the rug pulled out from under them, those are the people I'm kind of thinking about. And also there are people that uprooted their lives and moved here because they thought this was the reality of the situation and to have it change. So right now there is a proposal happening I think it's for people that already have moved here, gotten their residency, for them to be grandfathered in. But currently the proposed law doesn't allow for that. It actually only allows for people that have already put in their citizenship applications.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens.
All things considered, as far as changes go, if you're being forced to live here in Portugal for a little bit longer, really, there's worse punishment. You have to when you move here, you have to change your perspective about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Lose a lot of your expectations.
Yeah.
And just look at it differently, like I'm saying. And I think, if we have to live here a little bit longer, oh well.
Yeah.
We love it. Well, we'll keep everyone updated with what we know and what we hear.
Yeah.
Boots on the ground. And we wish you all luck. If you have questions for us, please leave a comment. We'd be happy to respond to it.
All right. We'll see you later.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Good luck.